ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. Today we will start chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita. This is very fascinating chapter once again, and you will find some of the terms very interesting. The entire spirituality will be explained in very simple words. So let us understand this chapter properly, verse by verse. So we will start with verse number 1. This chapter is called Akshar Brahma because that is the first, part of this verse. Kim tad Brahma? What is that Brahma? So Arjun ने कहा, हे पुरुषोत्तम, वह ब्रह्म क्या है, अध्यात्म क्या है, कर्म क्या है, अधिभूत नाम से क्या कहा गया है, अधिदेव किसको कहते हैं. Then verse number 2, हे मधुसूदन, यहाँ अधियज्ञ कौन है और वह इस शरीर में कैसे है तथा युक्त चित्त वाले पुरुषों द्वारा अंत समय में आप किस प्रकार जानने में आते हैं. Now look at the two verses. Arjuna has bombarded Lord Krishna with 7-8 questions. And in fact, most of these terms have come in the previous chapters. The word he says, Kim Tad Brahma. Now, Brahma has come many times in many chapters in Bhagavad Gita before this. Similarly, the word Adhyatma, Kim Adhyatma, this has also come. And on Karma, there have been two chapters. Chapter 3 and 4 are dedicated to Karma. But Arjuna is asking these questions again now. The other three words, that is Adhibhut, Adhidev, and Adhiyagya, these are the terms which are new, which have been introduced for the first time in the last verse of chapter 7. So Arjun was either not attentive to these words before or he wanted to have more clarification. And that is why he asked these questions. But whatever may be the reason, it would be very fascinating for us to understand these words. So we will go on first other two verses of Lord Krishna, and then we will analyze each of these words in detail. श्री भगवान ने कहा, परम अक्षर ब्रह्म है, अपना स्वरूप अध्यात्म के नाम से कहा जाता है और भूतों के भाव को उत्पन्न करने वाला जो त्याग है वह कर्म नाम से कहा गया है. So let us understand these three words. Kim tad Brahma, Kim Adhyatma, Kim Karm Purushottam. So what is this Brahma? We have also seen this word in many chapters in the past. But what is this Brahma? He says Akshar. This is I would say the shortest definition of Brahma is Akshar. Aksharam Brahma. That is the answer he has given. That jiska nas, shar means nas hota ho, depreciate hoti ho, shar. Akshar means which is not depreciating, which is not subject to destruction, decay and destruction. Now, if we look around in our world, do you find anything which is Akshar, which is not destructible? You won't find anything which is not destructible. A tree comes, it disappears. A human being comes, he dies. A bird is born, the bird dies. Even mountains disappear. They are born in tectonic events, then they disappear. Rivers appear and then they disappear. Whatever you see around us, everything is subject to destruction, decay and destruction. This is the very nature of this world. So, what is this Brahman, which is not subject to this law of nature, which is not subject to decay and destruction? How do you find it out? Now, modern science says that nothing can be created, nothing can be destroyed. Even a smallest particle of earth cannot be destroyed, it can be transformed. So, to some extent, they say that yes, things are getting transformed, but they are not subject to destruction. They are subject to decay and disappearance. Now, here he says that it is not subject to decay, not subject to destruction, does not disappear, it is always there. It has no beginning and no end. Now, what do we see which is always there? We do not see anything which is always there. Even the sun and the moon, which appear very firm and well established, the science will tell you that they also disappear. They will also lose their, you know, identity, maybe after millions of years, but they will. So to understand Brahma is very important. Anything which changes, the change happens on a base. What is that base? For example, you want to say altitude of your city. Say 600 meters is the altitude of your city. How do you count it? You count on the base of the sea level. That sea level is the base. Beyond that is the altitude. So that is how you count. Then you say the temperature has risen. Now, how do you say risen? Because you take an average temperature, that this is the temperature of a particular place in the year. This is higher, this is lower. So higher means it is, heat, lower means it is cold. So you have a base on which you arrive at certain calculations. So similarly, something is disappearing, decaying and disappearing. It has to have a base on which it decays. How do you say it is decaying? You cannot say it is decaying unless it has some sort of foundation. When the train is moving, you say it is moving. How do you say? Because it is changing its place from one city to another. It's going further down. It is the base is changing. The base is static, but the movement is visible. So there has to be a base which is constant. Otherwise, things will not change. The things will not decay. This is how the Brahma is defined. We have to identify that base which is not subject to decay and destruction. How do we identify that? I think the closest example I can take is that of Akash. I am not using the word space because Akash is more comprehensive than space. The word Akash, you see, Akash has no qualities. It has no form. Anything which has form will disappear. Anything which has attributes will disappear. Akash has no attribute. You create a room, the Akash is inside the room. You demolish the room, the Akash is back to its own place. Even otherwise, it was in its own place. Only the walls were created all around it. Now, from that room, you demolish it and you convert it into a toilet. You demolish the toilet, you convert it into a go down. You demolish that, you can convert it into a shop. So the Akash is static. Without Akash, you cannot create a toilet. You cannot create a bedroom. You cannot create a go down. You cannot create a shop. The Akash is the static part of it. The bedroom is coming and disappearing. The toilet is coming and disappearing. The go down is coming and disappearing. The shop is coming and disappearing. A road is coming and disappearing. Whatever is coming and disappearing, but the Akash is static. So Akash is the closest we can explain in terms of uh, what you call indestructibility. Akash is also subject to destruction, but that's a very different process. But from human point of view, this is the closest to the Almighty, and that is why the word Akash has been used in many Upanishads to define Brahman and to explain Brahman, even synonym to Brahman, because this is closest the human being can experience in terms of Brahman. Now, how do we? Let's take some other examples. Let's take example of human being. Now we know that the body decays. When I was a child, I was very different. When I was young, I was very different. Now I'm very different. Sometimes I may not even recognize my photos of childhood. So the body has changed. But do you think inside your awareness has changed? If you deep go down and look at your awareness, from the same awareness, you can experience your childhood, you can experience your youth, you can experience when you are working in a company, you can experience your present status, present form of your body. That remains unchanged. Can you visualize any change in that awareness? No. That awareness is constant, that is subject to nothing. It is not subject to decay and change. The body is decaying and changing, but the inner light or awareness, whatever we call it, is beyond all these limitations. So that is the closest to Brahman. The inner space which we have, the consciousness which gives us the awareness is closest to Brahman. Similarly, in the physical world, Akash is closest to Brahman. So Brahma is not easy to understand because anything which changes attracts our attention. For example, we are driving on a road for constantly for months. We don't notice the road at all, which is supporting our vehicle. And we don't even notice it. But all of a sudden you find a big pothole there, you notice, oh, road is destroyed. Or you find a new layer of tarmac on the road and you immediately find, oh, it has been renovated. So when there is a change in the physical objects, you notice them. If the change is not there, you ignore it, in the sense it doesn't come to your notice at all. It becomes a what you call, you become used to it. So this can happen even in case of physical objects. The Brahma is not physical in that sense because it has no shape, it has no attributes, it has no form, it has no, you know, quality or quantity. So how can we understand it? So in order to understand the Brahma, we have to understand through these two examples. One is through our inner self, second is looking at the Akash all around us. That will give us a very good idea that it has no beginning, it has no decay, and it is not destroyed. And everything else decays and destroys itself on that fundamental ground, which is called Brahma. The fundamental ground is provided by Brahma, and everything else changes, but that fundamental ground does not change. That is like the sea level, eh, on which you calculate the altitude. Similarly, the Brahma is the foundation on which you define decay and death and destruction. So this is how we can call it, we can define it in practical terms for us. So this is what it is very Akshar Brahma. He gives a very small definition of it. I have not seen such a definition anywhere else, such a small but very comprehensive definition. Aksharam Brahma. Then the second word, Aksharam Brahm Param, Swabhavo Adhyatma Uchyate. Swabhav. Arjun is asking what is Adhyatma? And he says Swabhav Adhyatma hai. Now that is also a very simple definition. Swabhav Adhyatma hai. Swabhav kya hai? What is Swabhav? Swabhav is the basic nature of any entity which is not acquired from outside. Like our body is acquired from outside. We can see the fetus is formed. Eyes are acquired, hands are acquired, your head is acquired, your body is acquired. It's all acquired. But something which is not acquired. When we grow up, the language is acquired. We learn a language. The costumes we wear is acquired. Anything which is acquired from outside is not Swabhav. Swabhav is the foundation on which that acquisition happens. Swabhav is the natural propensity, the natural existence on which the acquisition grows or the influence happens. Like, let me give you an example. Silence, maun. Maun is Swabhav. Language is acquisition. I was born in Hindi speaking area, so I picked up Hindi. Somebody was born in French speaking, he picked up French. Somebody was born in German speaking, he picked up German. Somebody was born in Telugu speaking, he picked up Telugu. But Mon is not picked up from anywhere. Mon is the basic nature of every human being. It is without any acquisition. It comes with us automatically. So Swabhav is the one which is pure, pristine, without any outside influence or without any outside accretion or acquisition. That is Swabhav. Now, basically, Swabhav is that pure consciousness which comes with us from the very beginning. Actually, when the fetus is formed, the first thing is that the pure consciousness comes into play, and around that, the fetus starts forming itself. That is the process. Without that consciousness, the fetus cannot form itself. The beginning starts from there. So Swabhav is that part. Now, we will learn certain other things later on. At that time, we will, understand how Swabhav can also be influenced by the previous lives and previous actions. And then in this world, when we come out with some sort of inbuilt influence on that consciousness, which is the baggage of our past births. But we will deal with that separately. There was a separate reference to that in Bhagavad Gita, and when we reach there, we will discuss that. But Swabhav is basically that part which is without any influence from outside world when we are born. And that is the pure consciousness when we are born, around which everything accumulates. And in fact, it was also said in previous chapter 7, that the infusion of Parashakti, that is the one which gives life to the various species of life. That infusion. So that infusion of Parashakti, actually that is the beginning of life, and that Parashakti is part of our Swabhav. So that is the Swabhav starts from there. It's the pure consciousness which comes into play when we are, in the process of getting birth. So that is Swabhav. Swabhav is without any influence. It is the natural, you can say, I don't know what is the word which I can use in English. It is the natural, inherent uh, existence, natural, inherent existence which comes with us. It is called Swabhav. So that is what Adhyatma. To understand that is Adhyatma. So this is a very interesting word again. Then the third word which he asked, what is karma? Here the word is Kim Karma Purushottam. Karma kya hai? Now what is karma? We talk about karma every time, but I think this is a very precise definition he has given here. Bhut bhavo dvakaro visarga karma sanchiti. भूतों के भाव को उत्पन्न करने वाला. Think about the karma. What do we mean by karma? We think ourselves. For example, we attend this session today. Now, that is a karma. Now, how that starts? एक भाव पैदा होता है. We create a भाव inside us that I should do this. From that bhav, a thought comes, the thought becomes will, and then the will becomes action. Then you start actually monitoring when is the session, what time, how do I reach there. You have the link, and then you reach to the session. So the action ultimately comes from that bhav. The original thing from where the karma originates is that bhav. That natural thinking process which comes into play, that gives rise to the final action. And that natural thinking process comes from that bhav. So bhavon ko utpann karne wala. This is somebody wants to earn a lot of wealth. Now that bhav created in his mind, the bhav came, and then it creates a seed in the mind, and then he starts thinking, how do I proceed? And then he takes different actions, different steps are followed one after another. So that is the karma. So the karma originates from the bhav. The bhav gives rise to thought. Thought turns into will, and will leads to the action. That is how it works. So भूतों के भाव को उत्पन्न करता है, वो कर्म है. Without bhav, if you don't have any bhav at all, you can do no karma. That is impossible. So the bhav is a natural beginning of a karma. That is the first beginning, first step towards the karma. So this is what he is saying here, which is a very scientific explanation of karma. Now, there are three other words which we should understand now, which are very interesting. Adhibhutam sharo bhave, पुरुषाश्च अधिदेवम, उत्पत्ति विनाश धर्म वाले सब पदार्थ अधिभूत हैं. हिरण्यमय पुरुष अधिदेव है. और हे देवधारियों में श्रेष्ठ अर्जुन, इस शरीर में मैं वासुदेवी अंतर्यामी रूप से अधियज्ञ हूं. Now these three words are very fascinating. Adhibhut. Adhibhutam sharo bhava. The thing which are depreciating, shar, not akshar, shar. The things which are constantly depreciating, constantly changing, that is adhibhut. Adhibhut basically means padarth, basically means the material objects. Now material objects are subject to change, subject to decay, subject to transformation into other forms. So that is what adhibhut is. Now This is where the Western science and the Indian thought has a sort of different connotation altogether. The entire Western thought and modern science is based on Adhibhut. They can define padarth, they can define objects, the physical objects. They can break them, they can analyze them in a laboratory and come to certain conclusions, and they can remix them and create new materials. So that is the scientific part of Adhibhut. So Adhibhut is can be analyzed, it can be broken into pieces because it's a mixture of things. Thing which is cannot be broken is the foundational tattva, jisko foundational element which cannot be broken into pieces further down. But things which can be broken, those are all what you call in Sanskrit it is padarth, but you can call them objects in modern language, physical objects. So the modern science is trying to understand this world from the analysis of physical existence, physical objects, that is adhibhut. That is their root of understanding the world. Their emphasis is more on the physical world, physical existence, physical objects. And they create many things out of it, and people feel very mesmerized. Oh, yes, you have created this, you have created that. But this is all basically what you call remixing of existing objects in the world. You everything, whatever is existing, you remix that. On the other hand, we learned Brahma in the beginning. Brahma is the one which is not subject to any change, which is totally eternal, totally unchanging, totally no beginning, no shape, no attributes. So that is the Brahma. So these are the two different scales. The Eastern philosophy, and particularly the Indian philosophy, is based on understanding the unchanging, eternal. That is what we call Brahma or Paramatma or Parmeshwar or Iswar. That is what we are trying to understand. The Western world is trying to understand the physical objects. They try to, you know, reach the moon and the sun and God knows many planets, and they try to analyze the padarth. They try to analyze physical objects, and they try to find the you know the origin of life in that. Now the modern science has reached a stage where they have broken the atom further. First, they reached the stage of atom and they discovered neutron, proton, and electron. Now they have further gone into what you call some subparticle physics. They have further broken the atom, and then they find that the atom becomes sort of wave. The matter disappears and it turns into wave. And now they don't have any answer to that, how it happens. So there, the science ends its search as of today. That what happens to those, how the waves, the matter becomes into waves, and how matter came into being, they can't explain that. On the other hand, the Indian philosophy fully explains how it comes. In fact, I had a long time back when I was in Port of Spain, I had delivered a talk to some scientists on this issue. And that was the time when we were talking about that God particle. In Geneva, there is a CERN institute of European countries where they were doing this research that how matter came into being. From original theory is that Big Bang theory, that there was a corpuscle of energy which somehow exploded, and then it expanded itself into the universe. Now the question arises that energy is photon. It has no weight, no mass. How weight and mass came into being, how the padarth and the matter came into being from that energy. So that was the question on which the discussion was happening. So that is a very different issue. We will not go into that today. But the fact is that the modern science and the Western world is basically engaged itself in analyzing the matter, various forms of matter, and trying to understand the mysteries of creation from that. On the other hand, the Eastern part, particularly Indian philosophy, the Upanishad, they try and go into the details of the eternal, unchangeable, you know, tattva, the element which we call Brahman. That element is the one on which everything arises and everything appears and everything disappears. उसी में लय होता है, उसी में प्रलय होता है, और उसी में उत्पत्ति होती है. उत्पत्ति, प्रलय and लय, everything happens on that substance which is called Brahma, which has no form, no attributes and no shape of its own. So this is what Adhibhut is. Adhibhut is the one which is physical substance which we see all around us. Now, Adidev, that is another word which has come into this thing here. In fact, if we look at Adhibhut, yeah, okay, let's do it here. Adhidev. Now, Adhidev is the one which is a combination of matter and consciousness. When the consciousness gives life to matter, then the Adhibhut is born. Adidev is born. The Adhibhut converts into Adidev because of the consciousness, because of the awareness. Let me give you an example. Our body is made of Adhibhut. It's the matter, physical matter. But when the consciousness comes, then your eyes are able to see, your nose is able to smell, feel the smell, your ears are able to listen, your tongue is able to taste, your skin is able to touch. All those qualities, your mind is able to think, all those qualities in the matter are produced because of injection of consciousness. And that combination of the two is called Adhibhut. That is why Adhibhut is also in a way, Adidev, not Adhibhut, Adidev. Adidev are also called Devta in our, certain traditional texts. For example, हम कहते हैं मन का देवता, मन का देवता, हम कहते हैं आंखों का देवता, कानों का देवता. And we even say Surya Dev, Chandra Dev, because all these physical objects have been injected with life, injected with consciousness because of that consciousness, injected with, you know, some power, additional power. You can call it power. That eyes a dead man cannot see. But when you have consciousness in the eyes, you can see. A dead man cannot hear, but when you have consciousness in ear, you can hear. So that power comes into Adhibhut, and that becomes Adidev. So Adidev is a state where it is not pure consciousness, but it is a mix of matter and consciousness, which gives rise to certain, divine activities. For example, sun. Now, sun is a physical thing, but it has been infused with certain qualities because of consciousness. The moon has been infused with certain qualities because of that consciousness. The earth is also called Dev because earth has also been infused with certain qualities because of that, conscious force. So all these are called Devta, Devik Shakti. That is basically the physical objects plus the power of the consciousness which has infused a particular property into them. So the consciousness has created divinity all around because of that power. It's the Prakriti and Purush ka male hai ye. Purush is the Brahm, that is the pure consciousness, and Prakriti is the one which is the physical objects. So when the two are united and a new power is created, that is called Adidev. So all this Adidev is the middle situation where there is a pure consciousness and matter have come together and they have created a new force. Now this is, you can call it a principle of science or you whatever, but this is a very profound explanation of all the things which are consciously operating in physical form, including the human body, including the physical forces which are operating in this world. All those are operating because they have a level of consciousness which has been infused into them, and that is why they are called devta. And because that shakti, devik shakti, has come from the mix of the consciousness, so that is adidev. So adidev is basically matter infused with power of consciousness, which gives it a certain properties which are very useful for us. For example, eyes can see, ears can hear, and the earth provides minerals and the sun provides light and heat and all those properties which we see. This is the mix of the two, so that is called adibhut. In many places they are referred to as devtas, but basically this is the most scientific explanation I have seen anywhere. We're talking about yajna. You see, yajna is a process in nature when the two forces of the nature come into play to create a third force, which is essential for a smooth running of this universe. Like we take an example of rain. When the sunlight comes in contact with water, the clouds are formed. The wind blows these clouds in different parts, so that is another yajna. And then finally, again, the temperature, you know, changes and condenses process brings that water back on the earth in the form of rain, snow, hails, etc., etc. So that is called, we call yajna. Yajna is performed in multiple forms, millions of forms in this world in different ways. I gave this example, even the human birth or birth of any species happens because of the yajna. The two forces, that is the, in case of human being, the egg of a woman and the semen of a man, they merge and then they create a third force called life. Another child comes into being. So this is called yajna. Now here Adi Yajna, what he is explaining is that this whole universe, the nature and the consciousness, when they come together, this whole universe come into play. And that is adhiyagya, in the sense that the pure consciousness sitting in behind this universe is working as adhiyagya. Without that consciousness, this universe will not be able to, function. And that is what is called adhiyagya. Adhiyagya takes, this is the adhiyagya means the whole holistic yagya which is happening in this world. This is happening because of the forces of nature, that is prakriti, and the purus, that is the parashakti of the almighty. When these two come together, then this whole srishti manifests itself, and variety of beings and variety of activities start happening in this universe. So that is adhiyagya, is the, what you call the the universal process of running this universe. with the combination of pure consciousness and uh, the nature. On the other hand, Adidev is manifested into individual body. That is manifestation of consciousness and the matter which we accumulate as a human being, but also other species of life have, other species of nature have. They also have that, you know, part of consciousness which enables them to have certain qualities, and those qualities come into place, come into being because of the combination of the limited consciousness and the matter which come into play. Here he is talking about the holistic process in which the pure consciousness as in its totality comes into play and brings this universe into play. So that is Adiyagya, the pure consciousness, Brahma, which is sitting behind the play of this universe, is called Adiyagya, because of that the entire process is in operation. Now, let me explain this with an example of electricity, which I think is the closest I can go to. A refrigerator has been made, it is lying in your kitchen. Now, as you connect that to the electricity, the whole process starts operating. But if there's no electricity, the refrigerator doesn't work. There's no operation inside that. But the same electricity, when you connect it to a heater, it operates in a different way, completely different way. So electricity is the same, but the operation depends on the instrument and the matter and the process. Now, exactly the same way, in case of universe, the consciousness is the same, but the different species, the different bodies which we see around, they are different, and based on their characteristics and their combination, the different activities and attributes come into play with the same consciousness. So this consciousness which operates in this universe, and the pure consciousness which gives rise to so many different species of life, so many other activities, each adiyagya, that consciousness, pure consciousness which provokes everything, that is adiyagya. It's like the electricity which gives you the heat and the cold and the air, and you know what other consequences you can get, any consequence you can get out of it depending on the body. You can even prepare an explosive based on that. So this is how these words are. These words are very very fundamental to spiritual concepts, and sometimes if we can understand these words properly, our path becomes very, very easy further down. So I'm happy that these words have come. There are some more which we'll, deal with in the next session. But today I would like to conclude with these 6 words. That is, Brahma kya hai, अध्यात्म क्या है, कर्म क्या है, अधिभूत क्या है, अधिदेव क्या है, अधियज्ञ क्या है. These 6 terms, if we can understand, I think we will understand the fundamentals or the operating principles of this universe. Thank you very much.